The new FPL season is finally here, and in today's video we're going to be covering all the key data you need to build the best first draft. Now before we dive into today's video, I just want to say that we are trying to hit 6,000 subscribers by the start of the new Premier League season, so if you do enjoy any of the content that you see over the course of pre-season, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. Plenty of videos. I think we're going to try for one per day up until the start of the season. It's a big ask, but we're going to go for it. We're going to try. Right, let's start off where every good draft starts off. It is in terms of the fixtures, which teams I think you potentially should be looking at and which teams, probably are worth avoiding. So let's start off with the teams I think maybe should kind of come under some consideration. I think Aston Villa, definitely, Ollie Watkins, Ezri Konsa, players like that definitely should be under some consideration with a strong start after obviously the Arsenal game for Aston Villa. Some very, very good fixtures in there. Looking at other teams as well, we've got Crystal Palace with arguably quite a nice opening four, especially if they can obviously keep up the form that they showed towards the back end of last season. Fulham have Leicester, Ipswich, West Ham as a run, so again, probably worth maybe considering some of their defenders, rather than any of their attacking options, but they do have some pretty decent ones as well. Liverpool, obviously the big standout team with Ipswich in match day one. They've also got Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth at home in the opening 5 fixtures. Manchester City's on paper, it looks like a lot of grey, but realistically, I think this could be a very, very strong start for City. They've got Chelsea away the first game, but then Ipswich in game week 2. Definitely looking at that Haaland captain for that match day for that one. West Ham and Brentford as well. 5 and 6, it does start to tail off, but then after that, it does come back very, very strong with Fulham, Wolves and Southampton. Manchester United, they have a mixed start, so probably a team I maybe would consider one asset from, potentially not anymore. Obviously, Newcastle, a lot of people have spoke about them and their start to the season. They're playing newly promoted Southampton at home, so again, for me, Isak, Gordon and maybe a defender, definitely all on the potential shopping list. Same goes for Nottingham Forest as well. A very, very good opening 3 fixtures. So people like Hudson-Odoi, Chris Wood, and maybe a defender. Again, all worth a little bit of consideration. Teams I probably would be looking to avoid come the start of the season, it would be the likes of West Ham. It probably would be Wolves as well, as realistically those fixtures do look a little bit tricky, to be honest. Brighton as well with Manchester United and Arsenal in the opening fixtures. Again, probably another team I would be looking to avoid. Same with Bournemouth as well, with Newcastle, Chelsea and Liverpool all within their first 5 fixtures. Right, let's move on to something I've been working quite hard on over the course of pre-season. I covered it in my first video of kind of this FPL season in the mock draft. Obviously, we've updated it with players' prices. It is, of course, the goalkeeper kind of spreadsheet. Now, for me personally, right, this is the strategy I'm going with this season. I am just going to be targeting 4.5 million goalkeepers, and I'm just going to stick with one throughout the course of the season. Now, I do feel there is a caveat. I feel you can't just go for any 4.5 million goalkeeper. For me, they need to be playing for a team that have good historical data in terms of kind of defending, and, they kind of, have decent stats from last season. So as you can see, obviously the key standouts for me from this data set, we're looking at Raya, 4.21 points per 90. You're thinking, great, that's great. But it is 5.5 million price tag. There is not too much difference from Jordan Pickford, who last season started the game at 4.5 million. And for that extra million that you're going to be playing on top of, the likes of Flecken or Verbergen, there's not really too much difference in terms of points per 90 over the course of a season as well. Something I've also noticed, as you can see with points against the top 6, Jordan Pickford absolutely smashed it last year. He picked up a mega haul against Liverpool towards the back end of the season, so definitely skewing this a little bit. But Flecken, even 31 points against the top 6. I feel so many of us have gotten to potentially this narrative of we have to have rotating goalkeepers, or we need, these goalkeepers to be playing against, the lesser opponents. We're looking for the clean sheets. We're kind of targeting those odds. But maybe what I'm suggesting is going against that a little bit and just playing a goalkeeper throughout the course of the season. Because as you can see, some of these goalkeepers, if they get it right against the top 6 clubs, come away with absolute mega hauls because they're making plenty of saves. If they keep a clean sheet as well, it's just all going to go in their favour. Now, obviously, I know some of the bonus points kind of system and metric has been skewed around a little bit, so maybe is going to impact the 4.5 million goalkeepers. But I think from a general points perspective, I still think they are very, very good value for money in my personal opinion. So what I am recommending for you guys to go and do is go out there, pick up a 4.5 million goalkeeper. For me, the top two are Flecken and Verbergen. I'm slightly leaning more towards Flecken. I think over the course of the opening 12 to 13 game weeks, they have the better fixtures. They just do. Obviously, you know, we're not obviously looking at fixtures, but if we, you know, hanging on with that wild card up until maybe 13, 14, or even later down the line, if we can hold all the way out till 19, then I definitely Flecken is going to be the goalkeeper for the first half of the season, in my personal opinion. And as you can see, his data from last season, it's not too bad, is it? Points against the top six, third most on there. His saves per 90 are pretty similar to Jordan Pickford's as well. Obviously, the clean sheets for Brentford last year were mightily disappointing, but they do have all their players back from injury. Ben Mee, Pinnock were obviously big misses at times last season. Rico Henry, another one in there. Brentford as well, historically, throughout the course of the Premier League, have picked up wins, historic wins, against the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, and Manchester City over the course of their Premier League stay as well. They obviously have a very astute tactical manager in Thomas Frank as well, and when they go up against these top six sides, it does feel like sometimes they do get a little bit fortunate and potentially pick up clean sheet points as well. So that's why I'm going to recommend Flecken as the top goalkeeper to go with. Obviously, if you disagree with any points I did make there, leave it in the comments section and we'll have a little bit of a discussion. But for me personally, it's not worth spending even that extra 0.5 or, you know, 1 million if you're looking at some of the goalkeepers like Raya or Edison, in my personal opinion, over going for a Flecken. And I also don't think it's worth spending that extra 0.5 million to get yourself 2 4.5 million rotating goalkeepers. It's just not worth it for me. I think you're better just playing one goalkeeper throughout the course of the season and hoping in those bigger games that they potentially could keep a clean sheet, or maybe just pick up enough save points to potentially warrant not having that extra goalkeeper. But that's my personal opinion. Like I said, let me know if you do disagree with any of the points I did make down in the comments section. Right, let's move on to two players that are hot in discussion at the moment. Now, first of all, as you can see, we're using a Fantasy Football Hub graphic. We have partnered with them this season. There is obviously going to be a link down in the description if you want to go and check out their website. Some amazing stuff which we're going to be covering throughout the course of this pre-season. Currently, they're giving people a 7-day free trial over the pre-season period, which is absolutely magical. So if you want to go and check out any of the key kind of tools or anything like that, link to that in the description. But plenty more will be shown throughout the course of the season, maybe if you're not convinced just yet. Right, let's start off with these two then. Salah versus Haaland. For me, a lot of people are obviously debating not putting Erling Haaland in with his steep price increase to 50 million. Now, I'm on the other side of the fence. I think realistically you should be starting with these two in your first draft, and I'm going to talk through it basically in terms of the captain matrix, because for me that is where it's all going to come down for in terms of buying premiums this season. For me, we're only going to maybe have 2 premium assets at a time, 3 at a stretch, maybe if we can find like some loophole or maybe some cheap players emerge out of absolutely nowhere like Cole Palmer did last season, but I'm very much doubtful that that's going to happen this season. So I think realistically we're probably going to be looking at 2 premium assets at a time in our sides and kind of just rotating around them when they have the decent fixtures. Now for me, the reason I've selected Mo Salah and Erling Haaland is, like I said, down to this captain matrix. As you can see down the bottom is their fixtures. Now, realistically, we're going to be captaining Mohamed Salah in match day 1. Obviously, some people have suggested Alexander Isak against Southampton at home. Don't think that's a bad shout either. But for me, probably most people will be looking at Mohamed Salah. So that makes him into our team for that week. Then we're looking at match day 2, and it's going to be Erling Haaland against Ipswich. Now, a lot of people are talking about not going with Haaland. Now, for me, that could be a disastrous thing. I think you're better starting off with him. And if he doesn't perform over the opening couple of weeks, you potentially at that point can then look to move him out. But like I said, we're just going to be swapping around the captaincy between these two. Match day 3, both of them don't have an amazing fixture. Obviously West Ham, we're going to have to see how they get under Lopetegui. Maybe they look a little bit frail in the opening couple game weeks, and maybe we're sticking with Haaland on the armband for that one. Maybe Manchester United defensively as well still look a little bit kind of susceptible, but I doubt that with some of the signings that they're making that is going to be the case. So realistically, you're probably going with Haaland or Ollie Watkins in that week, who I believe plays Leicester or Ipswich. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. Then for the next 3 weeks, you are going to be going realistically probably Mohamed Salah over Erling Haaland, with Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth and Wolves, with slightly difficult fixtures for Erling Haaland. You maybe could go for the Brentford one, but like I said, they do have quite a good historical record against Manchester City, do Brentford as well, so maybe one to avoid for that week. But then after that, you're looking at Fulham, Wolves, Southampton and Bournemouth, and realistically, Haaland is going to be probably perma-cap just for those 4, maybe even 5 if you want to include Brighton if they don't start the season well either. So definitely a player I think, for me personally, I would be looking to consider. And with Mohamed Salah as well, I reckon around that Wolves game, even on the Wolves game, I think maybe some managers might be looking to switch off him and move to Bukayo Saka, because Arsenal have 3 to 4 absolutely amazing fixtures at that point as well. So again, giving us an alternative captain to Erling Haaland. So obviously that's my thoughts on these two and these two big players, and why I think you should have them, because it's all down to that captaincy matrix, because that is realistically what these premium assets are for. They're not just there for the points, they are there to get those double points with us having the armband. But that's obviously enough kind of data. Let's go and take a look at my first draft for the FPL season. And now the moment you have all been waiting for. It is my first draft ahead of the new FPL season. Of course, we're going to start off with our goalkeeper picks first. I feel after the last section, it's probably quite clear where I'm thinking with my goalkeeper picks. It is, of course, going to be Flecken and Strakosha, who is the second goalkeeper for Brentford. He's in at 4 million, and obviously Flecken in 4.5. I feel I discussed goalkeepers in quite a big bit of length, to be honest, about why I'm selecting this 4.5 million goalkeeper. Like I said, just to kind of recap it, I think personally for me, just going for a 4.5 million goalkeeper who has a high chance of obviously making plenty of saves, plays for a team who has good historical data as well in terms of XG conceded. Brentford obviously fit in that category very, very much, and have obviously caused quite a few upsets in the past against some top 6 sides. For me, that's got Brentford written all over it. We're going with Flecken as our 4.5 million goalkeeper to start the season. Right, let's move on into our back line. We're going to start off with Lewis Dunk. He's going to be our first defender. Obviously, I feel I'm going to have to talk about my defence as kind of a whole rather than just individual players, to be honest. Now, as you can see on the bench, we've got Robinson, Harwood, Bellis at 4.5, Konza and Munoz, who is from Crystal Palace, who was very, very impressive at the back end of last season. Now, the reason I've selected all 5 of these defenders is they rotate extremely, extremely well with each other. Dunk probably up until around match day 6 is when obviously Brighton's fixtures fall away. So after that point, we probably would be looking to maybe move to a Chelsea defender at that point. But for the kind of opening 6 fixtures, we're going to rotate around with these guys. They've all got pretty decent fixtures as well. So that is the plan as kind of a holistic point. But let's talk through each individual defender. Obviously, Dunk coming in at 4.5 million. He is the captain for Brighton as well. Always got that little bit of an aerial set piece threat as well. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see how, they manage under their new manager, but had a really, really good record out in Germany as well. I think his team finished second or even maybe first for XG conceded in the second Bundesliga as well. So really, really good defensive record from them. So if you can translate that to Brighton, I think Dunk at 4.5 million could be an absolute steal. Munoz, I think, was excellent towards the back end of last season. From an eye test perspective, was ridiculous. Palace have got some really, really nice opening fixtures as well. Obviously, you do have Anderson and Gahey coming in at that 4.5 million range as well. But Munoz, for me, at 5 million, I think he potentially could be worth that extra 5 million. Because like I said, they were playing a very kind of rigid 3-back system, and the wing-backs were pushed extremely, extremely high. I think he's got more appeal over Mitchell as well. And like I said, from an eye test perspective, he was absolutely mesmeric for me. So definitely one that I think could start the game, potentially a little bit under the radar, but if he starts to cook over the opening few weeks, definitely will be in a few more people's teams. Ezri Konsa was in my team last year. Aston Villa again will be looking to build on their strong season from last year. He's a very, very solid, formidable 4.5 million defender. Also got the versatility to play at centre-back and right-back, which I think gives him massive, massive appeal, because if there's injuries or anything like that, obviously he's one of the first names that's still going to be on that team sheet. Moving on to our other defenders, we've got Robinson. Obviously, Fulham have a pretty decent start to the season. Not Manchester United in the opening game. He will sit on the bench for that one, but they do have some really, really good fixtures. I believe they play Ipswich and Leicester within the opening 5 games as well, which is great from a defensive perspective as well. So very, very happy to have him in the side. Harwood Bellis as well, coming in at 4 million. Southampton, obviously, as we saw from the fixture tracker all the way back at the start of the video, have again some really, really good fixtures. And like I said, this defense is more from kind of a holistic standpoint, where we're looking at kind of all 5 objectively and seeing how much they rotate with each other, and kind of sticking with a back 3 for the majority. I think there's only maybe 1 week where it becomes a back 4, but the rest of the weeks it's going to be a back 3. And the reason I've done that is obviously there's been a change to obviously the bonus point metrics, which means defenders are now going to lose 4 points on the bonus point metric per goal they concede. So it does make, you know, the likes of the attacking defenders who play for the lesser teams, or even defenders in general, a little bit less appealing. And I think a lot of people will be kind of sticking with a 3 at the back system throughout the majority of the season, because it seems like defensive points probably going to be a little bit pish. And obviously with how last season went as well in terms of kind of clean sheets, it was minimal. It was minimal, wasn't it? Like, a lot of games obviously had both teams scoring, and I feel that is only a trend that is going to continue this season as well. So I am expecting very, very few clean sheets. So we're going for a kind of a cheap back 5 that can very much just happily rotate amongst when they have pretty decent fixtures. Right, let's move on into our midfield. We're going to start off with Nkunku. Now, obviously, he's got Manchester City on the opening game. Not the greatest, but after that there's some pretty decent fixtures for Chelsea as well. I think obviously last year his season was kind of tainted, wasn't it? But at 6.5, coming in as a midfielder who's going to be playing up front, out of position players, you know that's an absolute cheat code in FPL. There's also some really, really good players priced around that 6.5 million. So if this kind of gamble doesn't potentially work, I think, you know, it's you know, easy to hop off him if you like. But for me, I think he's going to be one of the players that could have a very, very good start to the season. Also comes in ridiculously priced compared to Cole Palmer as well. Gets us into that Chelsea attack, which at times looked very, very good. But obviously they're under a new manager. We're going to have to see how pre-season goes and whether or not Nkunku is looking like the real deal. One player who started pre-season pretty well is Hudson-Odoi. Picked up 2 assists in their opening pre-season game against Chesterfield. Like I said, going back to the fixture tracker, Forest have some very, very good fixtures. Hudson-Odoi at 5.5 million seems like a little bit of a steal. Maybe his minutes aren't secured, and maybe it could be worth going for, obviously, a Morgan Gibbs-White at that 6.5 million range. But for 5.5, again, there's a lot of high-quality players around that price point that we can very easily hop onto and hop off to. But Hudson-Odoi, I'm liking it. Times last season, he definitely passed the eye test, but for me, the opening few fixtures, again, could be worth a little bit of a cheeky gamble, coming in at that 5.5 million range. Moving on to our next midfielder, it is going to be Mohamed Salah. Obviously, we discussed the appeal of him over the opening couple of weeks. Probably around match day 6, we would look to move him on for Bukayo Saka. But interestingly, using Fantasy Football Hub's data, Liverpool are expected to pick up the most points and are the best attack over the course of the opening game week. So for me, it seems like a real no-brainer. It gives you a very, very easy captain going into that opening game week. Salah also has a very, very good historical record of picking up some absolute mega hauls against newly promoted teams, especially in match day 1 as well. Also hit over the 200-point mark last season. So again, just feels like a real no-brainer for me. Anthony Gordon coming in at 7.5 million. He's going to be our next midfielder. Very, very happy with that one, to be honest. For me, Newcastle at home last season were very, very good. Some good opening fixtures as well. Up against newly promoted Southampton on the opening day. Anthony Gordon, I think, was first or second for points at home amongst all players in the game. And again, very similar with our other midfielders. Comes in at a nice price point where if it's not working out for him, there are plenty of other decent options coming in at that 7.5 million that can make the switch very, very easy in my personal opinion. Our bench midfielder, nothing really to write home about. We're picking a 4.5 million. I'm just going to kind of scout pre-season, maybe see potentially any youth players that get any minutes to kind of find the ideal 4.5 million. But throughout the course of the season, pre-season, sorry, that will obviously update and I will let you guys know which 4.5 million midfielder I will be going for. Right, let's move on to our three forwards. It's obviously looking very, very strong with these front three. Let's start off with Alexander Isak. He's going to be the vice captain. I think could be a very, very good shout for captaincy as well. He finished third or fourth for XG as well amongst all players last season. So a really, really good standout season for him. Great home record as well with Newcastle United. Obviously that opening fixture against Southampton. Everybody's licking their lips at that one. I think probably after match day 5 when they play Manchester City, that's probably the point we maybe would look to move off him. I think also decent shouts could be Cody Gakpo and Darwin Núñez for Alexander Isak, but I think he's going to be extremely high owned for the opening couple game weeks. Had a phenomenal back end kind of towards the season last year as well. So for me, feels like an absolute no-brainer. Ollie Watkins is in here. Now, you might be thinking, why have you got Ollie Watkins? They've got West Ham in the opening game, not the easiest one. Arsenal in match day 2, a little bit of a difficult task. I agree. The game week 2 game is the only thing putting me off Ollie Watkins. After that, though, their fixtures from match day 3 are phenomenal. Definitely a player I would be very, very highly looking at. Maybe you could go Alexander Isak and switch to Watkins in match day 3. It's that good. They face Ipswich or Leicester in match day 3. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but I think that's where we're going to be going for captaincy in match day 3, to be honest. Obviously, Haaland has Brentford. Salah has Nottingham Forest, if I remember correctly. No, they have Manchester United. So for me, I think Watkins is like the ideal captain. Obviously, I do expect there to be a downturn in points. If you looked at his expected assists and the assists he actually managed to pick up last season, miles apart. So that's not going to happen again. But what he does have this season is probably going to have the penalties back with Douglas Luiz leaving to Juventus as well. So we know how kind of potent that is. And obviously with the bonus point metrics changing around, 4 strikers now picking up more bonus points for shots on target. Ollie Watkins was right up there as one of the players who got off plenty of shots last season as well. Moving on to our final striker, it is going to be the big man. I feel like we already covered him and his appeal with Mohamed Salah, obviously in the last section, talking about their appeal as captaincy. He will be our captain for match day 2. And then, like I said, he has that amazing run from game week 6 onwards. Obviously, I'm going to make some drafts without him, kind of tinker around, see what I think maybe potentially worth going without him. But for now, in my first draft, we're going to have the big man himself. That is going to conclude today's video. If you did enjoy any of the content that you've seen on the channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and FPL is back.